Still can't hear you. Mm-mm.
Preston, I'm not even showing you have audio connected at this point. There's no audio. Bye, Preston. You must be rebooting.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
All right. And I have a much better background. I have no idea what that other thing was.
The scary dog.
It was a scary dog, wasn't it? Eric's always like this. Where is he now?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sophia.
Hey, Sophia, just so you know, the Hmong translation under Zoom is actually under Chinese. Zoom doesn't have a Hmong selection yet, even though Gavin's tried. So the folks that need the Hmong translation would have to check under the Chinese box.
Okay, great. And I'm thinking Raina will probably explain that, but I will also mention it. So do we know how many participants we have so far?
Yes, we have 24 attendees and 10 panelists currently.
And you need to hold off for a couple minutes. CMAC was having some problems getting in, so.
Are we live yet?
Only on YouTube. We're waiting for CMAC to join us.
Do we have quorum yet? Sophia, do we have quorum?
Let's see. I am looking. We would need 6 for a quorum. And right now I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yes, we do have a quorum.
All right. Can you do screen share so we can start our meeting this evening?
Okay, CMAC still hasn't joined. If you want to be televised, you need to hold on for a few more minutes.
Oh, okay. We can
I'll let
wait.
you know as soon as they're on and spun up.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. Actually, I can go ahead and share my screen just so that people know where they've landed. So let me just go ahead and do that. Here we go. There we go. Can everybody see the flyer there on the shared screen?
Yep.
Great.
Okay, CMAC is now televising, so you're good to go.
Okay, Eric, would you like me to start the meeting then?
Yes, let's go right ahead.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, members of the Anti-Displacement Task Force and members of the community. This is the Anti-Displacement Task Force meeting, and we want to extend a warm welcome. We are going to go over just a few logistics and a bit about the task force in case this is the first time you're dropping in, and then we'll get started. I did want to mention that we have Spanish and Hmong translation available. And Linguistica, would you be able to describe the translation services available?
They're not going to be able to. They're in translation mode, so the only audio they have is on their translation frequency. So people just need to click on the interpretation button down at the bottom and pick one of the two languages. Unfortunately, Hmong is not listed, so we have Hmong under Chinese and Spanish under Spanish. So if you click on one of them, you will hear the translator's audio instead of the English audio.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. Also, the way this meeting is going to run is that we will have committee business and a presentation, and then there will be time for questions and answers. So if you could hold your questions until the question time, that would be most appreciated. We will facilitate those. And I think that is all for logistics. Just to give you a little bit of background, again, in case this was the first time that you are dropping in. Sorry, let me get my PowerPoint so that it's operating. The purpose of the Anti-Displacement Task Force. Briefly stated, the purpose of the task force is to explore ways to provide opportunities for low-income residents and merchants to remain in their neighborhoods if displacement is observed due to substantial and sustained increases in rent. And the task force is supporting a number of planning efforts, including Transform Fresno, the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan, and the Downtown Neighborhoods Community Plan. The task force was created at the end of 2018. It's an 11-member task force created by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. The first meeting was held in April of 2019, and 5 meetings have been held to date. This is meeting number 6. And if you'd like more information on the task force, you can go to the website here. So, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I already mentioned this, but would it be helpful if we can do a quick introduction in Spanish and Hmong to just let folks who may not be familiar with the interpretation feature hear it in the main English channel?
Sure. How would that be done?
I think the person, or maybe we can do it in the chat, but maybe the interpreters would switch over to the English channel and just let in the Hmong and in Spanish, let folks know that how to kind of maneuver, hey, you go to the little globe at the bottom and then you click on this and I should be on that line kind of thing.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know what to, if I need to explain that, I'm not schooled on that, so maybe you can help me.
I just ended the interpretation, so the interpreters can speak now on the live channel.
Okay, this is B, of the Hmong interpreter. Của từ bị lọt sai đồng phong ở trên này là một cổng này hai lồng mong là trên này là một nhà khó Chinese channel nè như zoom chỉ mua khó mong chỉ là mới assign cho khó Chinese thì có làm nông Chinese chỉ có làm nhà khó translation nè để cái nhà khó Chinese chỉ còn đây mong sai luôn nhất hậu. Thank you.
Thank you. Now if we can have it in Spanish.
Hola a todos, bienvenido. Esta es Emilia. Solamente para dejarles saber que esta reunión está siendo transmitida también en el lenguaje de español. Para poder acceder a esos servicios de traducción, abajo de su pantalla debería de aparecer un icono que es un globo. Ahí va a presionarle y seleccionar el canal de español. En cuanto lo seleccione, entonces puede poner en silencio el audio original y así va a poder escuchar la junta en español. Muchas gracias.
Okay, I've started the translation back up again. Let's make sure yep, they're live again, so you're good.
Thank you, Grecia, for that. So this evening, I am going to go ahead and take roll, and then I'm going to turn it over to Acting Chair Eric Payne, and he will take it from there. So let me pardon just one moment. I realize. So Eric Payne. Do I have a present? I know he's here. I'm taking roll. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I must have blocked out. So Eric Payne, are you here?
And then Sophia, I'm sorry, did you see the message from Destiny that people are struggling to get on? So I don't know if you want to try to figure that out first and then do the.
Thank you, thank you. Okay.
I'm going to text Destiny right now,
Okay,
that link.
thank you.
Okay, now I'll be quiet. I'll go back on mute.
Okay, that's all right. Yes, I have technical backup here. So any technical issues, just let us know. We have Gavin and Courtney helping us out. All right, Preston Prince.
Here.
Artie Padilla.
Here.
Grecia Elenes.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Forbes.
Here.
Great. We have a new member with us this evening, Amber Crowell. Amber?
Here.
Welcome, Amber.
Thank you.
Yes. And one moment, please. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. I believe those are all the task force members I said Sal Gonzalez. Sal, do I hear you? I thought I saw you. Okay. Sharayla Nicholson.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Again, Sal Gonzalez. I thought I heard Sal or saw Sal. No? Okay. Is there any other task force member I missed that's here that I didn't call? Okay. Morgan Doizaki, we're taking roll. I'm going to register you as here.
Sophia, we have a couple of people that have raised their hands, and I just want to make sure it's not a question about being able to get on. So is it okay if we call on them?
Absolutely.
Okay. Bernice Vega, did you have something you needed to ask? I have unmuted you, so. Bernice? No? Okay. How about Lisa Harry?
I'm here.
Hi, Lisa. Did you have a question before we get started?
I just want you to know I'm here, baby.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. I think that's all of our task force members. Yep, I've got, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 members present. So with that, Eric, would you like to take over from here? And now I see Sal Gonzalez. Sal, are you on?
Sophia, this is
Yes. So we're getting some kind of feedback here. Sal, we see that you're there. We can't hear you very well. Okay, are we ready to turn it over to Eric?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Are we doing screen share?
Do you need to see that? I'm sorry, did I stop sharing? Here we go. Here we go.
All right. So I definitely wanted to, as the acting chair of the meeting, I wanted to welcome one of our new members, Amber. We thank you for joining our task force, and we look forward to your service. And then, so you can, folks that are listening can do a thumbs up to welcome Amber or a hand clap of some sort. And then I guess our first order of business is election of officers, correct, Sophia? Okay, and
Yes.
so we're gonna open it up for nominations.
Are you doing chair or vice chair? Or are you doing them together?
Can we do them together, Sophia?
You can, if folks want to nominate that way, that's fine. However you want to do it.
If I may make a motion to nominate Eric Payne as chair and Gracia Elenas as vice chair.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been properly first and seconded by Preston Prince and Artie Padilla. Motion to approve. Roll call vote, please. Oh, I'm sorry. If there are no other nominations, I'd like to move to close the nomination. So move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And so now we'll do a roll call vote for the nominations, correct, Sophia?
I'll unmute myself, yes. Okay, so Morgan Doizaki.
Aye.
Okay. Sal Gonzalez,
Aye.
Amber Crowell,
Aye.
Catherine Forbes,
Aye.
Grecia Elenes,
Aye.
Oof, I'm glad that one happened.
Preston Prince,
Aye.
Eric Payne,
Aye.
Artie Padilla,
Aye.
and Sharayla Nicholson.
Aye.
Looks like that passes unanimously.
Did you call out Amber?
I did.
Got it.
Excellent. So congratulations to our Vice Chair, Grecia. And I also look forward to an eventful and exciting tenure as your chair. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the Thrivance Group. They're here to give an update on the activities that they've been doing for the last few months in the project area. So we'd like to turn it over to Dr. Thomas and her team.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you everyone with the Anti-Displacement Task Force for giving us time to share. I'm wondering if I can have permission to share my screen, and I'm sorry I didn't request that sooner.
Yes, so that means I need to stop, doesn't it? Okay, let's see. All righty.
Okay, let me give it a go. So I'll get us started with sort of a high level overview of work done to date. And then I'm going to hand off portions of the presentation to my colleagues at the Thrivance Group to give updates on the projects that they're working on. Just to give people a reminder about, what Thrivance project set out to do. Earlier this year, there were three main tasks that were assigned to us. The first one was to do research and community engagement that led to, a set of policy recommendations for the purposes of displacement avoidance. The second thing was to facilitate capacity building within the city staff themselves so that they have the knowledge and tools to implement the policies that are recommended, the ones that they identify to move forward with. And then lastly, to leave a set of tools behind so that they can continue to measure, predict, and prevent displacement in the long run. So we had a long list of deliverables to get us to those goals. Everything that is listed here in the lighter text are things that we've completed. Everything that is listed as bold are things that we're currently working on. And then everything that is grayed out at the bottom are things that we will be picking up in a week or so. So what we've managed to do was kick off the project. We conducted our social climate analysis, which I'll talk more about in a moment. We've also facilitated several transformative justice sessions, which are opportunities for the community to meet with us as strategists to support them in rebuilding trust between community and the city. And then we also serve as thought partners with the other project partners in our area to support them in making sure that there is a displacement avoidance lens attached to everything that they do. What we're currently working on is finishing our archival research, as well as rolling out our oral history project, which my colleague will talk about in a moment. We are getting ready to present our preliminary policy gap analysis, which is a fancy way of saying the categories that we found the categories that lent themselves to being opportunities for new policies. We'll be sharing that in our first Dignity Lab, which another colleague will talk about. We're rolling out our info hubs, and we're establishing our memorandum of agreements with folks to get partners at the community level to help not only with the oral history project, but also with the decision-making around the recommended policies. So these are the things we're working on right now, and getting to a point where we're ready to share those with the community. And then what we'll work on toward the end of the year, or between now and the end of the year, is finalizing that research, getting together with the city to help build capacity among staff, presenting a final package of proposals, and then creating an implementation plan for the city to carry forward. In January 2021, we'll have an official oral history project installation unveiling. So the first thing that we did was something that we call a social climate analysis. This is our opportunity to look at the project area in the city, more broadly, the whole city of Fresno, without wearing our technical hats. So we don't look at the space as planners or as engineers. We look at it as former residents, existing residents, and people looking to give people a sense of relief from displacement pressures that they're experiencing right now. And so we do this in 3 phases. The first thing we do is we go out into the community just to observe. And then based on those observations, we make internal recommendations for who we should invite out for part 2. And so we look for opportunities to invite service providers that fill a safety net need, like housing advocacy groups, as well as food security groups. So we bring them out to phase 2, to the same project area, and share with them what our observations were and get recommendations from them regarding next steps. In phase 3, we bring community out with us along with our safety net partners to help explain to implementers in the city, people who are responsible for the implementation of what our final project would be, the importance of the issues that arose out of part 1 and part 2. Because of COVID-19, we had to modify this strategy a little bit. So we did do part 1 in the field with the Thrivance Group staff, and part 2 and part 3 happened virtually by checking in with folks through stakeholder interviews and executive interviews. One of the things that we found through this process was that there was a strong need to develop something that we call a Thrivance narrative. In existing planning documents in the city, in the county, and both statewide, there was a consistent and substantial amount of descriptions of the community that skewed negative, and many residents that we were able to engage with talked about feeling degraded and erased as a result of how they were being described in planning documents. And so we used the findings that we got from stakeholder interviews, as well as our transformative justice group meetings, and we developed a narrative about the project area that speaks to the rich history and cultural makeup of the community from a place of strength and assets. So these were some of the themes that came out of that Thrivance narrative. We wanted to focus on the legacy of the Yokut heritage in the area, the introduction of Black agriculture, the power of the Chicano movement, which partnered with Black people in the region, and then also the legacy of Hmongs in the community and how they really helped galvanize the resistance against the Vietnam War, as well as some of the labor movement activities that were happening. So these were the communities that we found were most likely to be erased in conversations about Fresno. So everything else that we're presenting today has a dual meaning for us. So it's not just to deliver the project deliverables that were assigned to us, but to also incorporate these stories and make these communities more visible when we talk about what Fresno is today, what's at stake if displacement continues to happen, and who we should be centering in our efforts to keep people in place. Some examples of the anti-displacement safety net that we identified through the 3 phases of our social climate analysis were employment access advocates and economic development groups. We also found that there were advocacy groups with deep institutional history regarding infrastructure and investment patterns in Fresno. We work closely with the Housing Authority staff as well as housing justice advocates. We work with racial justice advocates, public health professionals, and we work in alignment with anti-racism campaigns in the region. This is the list of opportunities for deeper understanding. So these themes you should consider to be the themes that we will house all of our policy recommendations within. So we are doing an analysis about the labor profile in Fresno to assess how different sectors or segments of the labor profile are more likely to be displaced than others. We're doing an analysis about the current phase of displacement that particularly Southwest Fresno is experiencing. We're making an assessment of existing zoning laws in addition to recommendations for new ones. We're testing mobility attitudes and perceptions in the project area to see if the perceptions themselves are contributing to push out. We're looking for sites of cultural thrivance, which includes opportunities for people to gather and build a stronger sense of community. We're looking for opportunities for youth engagement, and we're also looking for patterns of ongoing harm that could be disrupted through the policies that we recommend. Some of the critical path considerations that are showing up for us through this analysis of the existing state of displacement in Fresno include the recent Creek Fire, which may not contribute to displacement, directly to displacement in Fresno proper, but will be a destabilizing element when it comes to the available housing stock in Fresno. Over 1,000 families have been displaced to date. We also are looking closely at the 45% increase in homelessness in Fresno and Madera, and what the contributing factors are and the availability of resources to serve that population. We're looking at what the impacts of the end of the statewide eviction moratorium will be when it comes in January, and who is at risk in Fresno. So we'll, in the coming weeks, we'll be doing an analysis of former eviction roll patterns and making a hypothetical or projection about what that would look like in January, given all of these circumstances that are compounding right now. We're doing a count of brownfields and their adjacency to areas that are already experiencing displacement. So when we did our field check, we noticed a large number of moving vans and furniture dumping, which is a sign that displacement is happening, although it's not being recorded. Those locations are distinctly located near brownfields in Fresno. We're also looking at the ongoing destabilization of small businesses that's happening as a result of COVID-19. So some of the things that we're doing right now with other project partners and other projects in the project area are we're creating tools so that not just us, but other people who are doing planning and development and community engagement in the area have tools that are consistent with the tools that other people are using. So this is an example of one of those tools. We call it our activated anti-displacement rubric. I won't go into a great detail about how this is used because it's a part of a larger handbook for our project partners, but it helps people understand the various definitions of displacement and gentrification, what phase gentrification or displacement an area is experiencing, and which types of interventions and community engagement formats are appropriate given that stage of displacement. We also did another layer of analysis to communicate to project partners which core values can be achieved through certain types of community engagement. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Brittany Brown, to talk a little bit about our oral history project. And you can just let me know when to advance slides.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just going to talk briefly about some of the work that we're doing to kind of ground the policies that we're developing in Fresno that's related to anti-displacement. That one of them being our oral history project. Dr. Thomas, can you go to the next slide for some added context? So the oral history project is again an attempt to kind of ground truth, the work that we're doing. It's also a way to kind of understand, well, to engage folks in a way that really unpacks history and culture. And I'll just go into how we're gathering the stories and the visual assets. One of the ways we're doing this is through our oral history labs. These will be interactive in-person and virtual sessions facilitated by Thrivance. Participants will be led through a series of activities focused on storytelling and collaboration. We'll also be holding some in-depth interviews. These are one-on-one interviews with a member of the community to be conducted by someone with ties to the community or a member of the Thrivance team. And then finally, we'll fold in the oral history project into our info hubs, which will be discussed later on in the presentation. But essentially, these hubs will have information on how to get involved in the project, along with project updates. And it'll also have some of the stories and visual assets that we collect throughout the project that are going to be currently available for public viewing. Next slide, please. So this is the oral history project timeline. In the summer of 2020, we did some concept development. We engaged some stakeholders through interviews. And then we also did an internal lab, an internal Thrivance lab, where we kind of unpacked oral history, the definition of oral history, the definition of archival research, as a kind of like a testing ground on how we would then deliver a lab to the community. One of the principles and the core values we have is that in every opportunity that we have to engage with the community, we see it as a capacity building tool. And so we see oral history and some of the practices involved in collecting oral history as a way to do some kind of technical capacity building in the community. And then for fall 2020, we're going to be doing the story and visual asset collection. So that includes some of our oral history labs. It also includes some of the info hubs, as well as some in-depth interviews. And then for winter 2020 to 21, we'll be doing the oral history installation and asset review. Next slide, please. And then in our internal oral history lab findings, we really displacement, arts and culture, visibility and erasure, centering race, this kind of idea of different time periods throughout Fresno and what that meant for communities. So the building of the highway, railroad, Shaw Avenue, and that's in the development of Shaw Avenue, and other cultural markers were some of the things that kind of came out of our lab, and we're using this lab to kind of ground some of our themes as we develop the oral history project. Next slide, please. So this is a kind of like a concept or a principle that we developed through our executive interviews that we've done, our stakeholder interviews, and as well as our project partner meetings. And essentially this is just saying we must reveal and honor the journey and tell the story of Fresno's most marginalized communities with the purpose of developing policies and tools to ensure that the harms are not reproduced. And so this goes back to Dr. Thomas's slide around I hear some, if you could please mute yourself. Okay, thank you. This is, in this particular principle and element, we're thinking specifically about communities of color that may have been harmed by Fresno's legacy of zoning. And so we're going to be really intentional about the communities and organizations that we are engaging in the project, especially as we are developing policies that currently are where we're tasked with anti-displacement. So it's really important for us to kind of lean into, what has happened so that it doesn't happen again. Next slide, please. And another guiding principle and value is that we want to work with the communities in Fresno so that they can serve as co-strategists as we develop our anti-displacement policies and reports. So this is really important to us and a value to us. And then we are going to leverage our principles, our dignity-infused community engagement method, and our dignity principles to enhance our story and visual asset collection. So that leads to the fact that we are going to be working with folks who we will provide capacity building to interview folks in their community. And then now we're going to invite you to the oral history project. So essentially, we want to invite you, the community, to share your stories as honored and necessary guests. This project is going to result in a collection of photos and other historical objects for the communities to display, along with installations that will be placed throughout the city. There is a link and it'll be on our website very soon. It's essentially an interest form where you can fill out. We ask for your name and then ways in which you want to get involved. And we're also going to be, through our community, our work in working with project partners through Transform Fresno, we've gotten a list of names of key community leaders that we should be reaching out to, as well as organizations that can kind of serve as our affinity groups as we build out the oral history lab. And I think that concludes the portion of my presentation.
Thank you, Brittany. So all of the work that is happening through the oral history labs will feed into our ongoing analysis of policy gaps. So again, the things that we're going to be looking closely for are the need for immediate development interventions, these ideas about restorative zoning. So how to zone in a way that restores a sense of dignity and stability in terms of housing. We're going to be looking into opportunities for right to return for a season, because what's been happening with COVID-19 is that folks have been preemptively moving out or experiencing displacement. So we want to see if we can develop a process for reclaiming those residents. And then we're also going to provide guiding language and guiding principles for establishing equity-related commitments with new or prospective developers. So now I want to hand it off to my colleague Alejo, who's going to talk a little bit about our Info Hub work.
Hey everyone, my name is Alejo. I'm a planner at Thrivance Group, and I'm going to go ahead and let you know about our Info Hub plan and implementation. So given the COVID restrictions and just limitations around shelter in place, Thrivance still wants to remain in the community and just be as open and transparent about the process and where we are in our work. And the Info Hubs are going to serve as a stand-in for a physical presence. So again, it's going to be a site of not only exchange, but an invitation to really join us in the projects that we're working on, one of which is the oral history project that Brittany just laid out for you. And the other one is going to be a policy workshop. So these are things where we really want to invite residents to just be part of the process around displacement. And we really want to prioritize anti-displacement efforts. And we're gonna archive the oral histories, which will also be on display at the info hubs. Next slide, please. When identifying location hubs or the info hub locations, we really focused on essential businesses, places that are still having foot traffic and still have a wide reach during this time, such as safety net service providers, and the info hub structure really lends itself to being flexible and adaptive, has lots of different parts to it. Next slide, please. So we created 3 different types of hubs. There's a traditional info hub, which is, like we said, just an essential business, i.e. a grocery store or direct service office. And they're gonna be host to different visual assets, some of which will be flyers, digital flyers, and then there will also be a point of contact who will be the person who is communicating with people as they come by, and they're gonna kind of take charge of just disseminating that information and being the go-between between us and the community. And then the second category is a digital hub, which is going to kind of it's a little bit amorphous. It's going to be newsletters, also push notification blasts through apps like Fresco. And then the third category is a hub ambassador, and that's again another point of contact, community members who have a strong network, who again will just serve as a more of a one-on-one way of disseminating information. Next slide, please. And so this is a map of all the potential and current locations. So the yellow dots are ones that we are negotiating partnerships with, and the green dots are ones that we've secured. Some of which are Central Fish Market, the Bulldog Food Pantry, Chinatown Fresno. And we selected these locations because we want to make sure that there's just a wide geographic spread, and also we want to make sure that they're accessible. So we made sure that they are located near transit so people can get to these points. And next slide, please. All right, so as we begin to roll this out, we are gonna have an interactive map which will be hosted on the Thrivance Group website. And for people who would like to stay in the loop, we are also gonna have a link to volunteer to be a hub ambassador, as well as an interest form for local businesses. Yeah, and that's it. And also we will be having an orientation for the info hubs and hub ambassadors on October 9th.
Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Ndidi to talk about Dignity Labs.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ndidi Love. I am the Senior Program Manager with the Thrivance Group. I typically work around our stakeholder engagement, in terms of our work in Fresno, I'm very excited because I get to work through some of my personal issues with the public process and be able to invite our community in to really do some participatory decision-making and establish some leadership roles. So let's get into this. Our first thing is we want to be able to introduce our approach and invite residents to co-lead with us in our very first Dignity Lab workshop. And then in our second workshop, we want to be able to provide an update for our community through resident-led engagement. And so we want to be able to develop residents to kind of be able to approach things using their language and really taking ownership of what's happening in their neighborhoods. And then in our final policy recommendation community workshop, we really want to be able to allow our community to do that last round of vetting, to put their flavor on it, and so that we'll be able to be ready for our council presentation, which we would very much so love for it to be co-presented by residents in the project area. And so this really leans wholly into some of our DICE methodology, our dignity infused community engagement methodology, where we really want to challenge municipalities and cities to move away from high stakes meetings and high stakes methods of engaging our community. And so we want to be able to bring folks along with us in a really comprehensive and integral way where they're able to really work through the community vetting and prioritization process. And so this is something that we piloted some new processes and cooperative decision-making processes together as a staff through some of our other projects. So I'm really excited to be able to give our community a way of thinking through what the neighborhood changes could be and what policy recommendations are when they come to folks. Next slide. All right. And so we have 3 upcoming Dignity Labs. Our first one is going to be on October 12th. We'll go over the research findings. We'll go over some resident leadership roles that we would like to establish and folks can hopefully nominate themselves for. Our second Dignity Lab will be on November 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And we'll be able to kind of work with our residents so that they can present some of the recommendations, some of the policy gap recommendations to each other and to us. We really want folks to be empowered to speak and talk about what's happening in their neighborhood and how these projects are rolling out in their neighborhood. And then on our December 7th meeting, we'll be coming together, like I said, to put that extra flavor, that Fresno flavor on things, and to really continue to craft and do our final vetting of this package of policy recommendations and prepare our residents to co-present with us to the City Council. And so please, if you are interested in coming to one of these Dignity Labs, we'll be uploading the events to the community calendars on the Thrivance Group website and on the Transform Fresno website. So at www.transformfresno.com and www.thrivancegroup.com, you can sign up and you can get registered, and your Zoom information will be available on those 2 sites.
Thank you. And the same process that, thank you, Ndidi, the same process that Ndidi just laid out is how you will be able to access all of the reports and flyers and handouts and materials that come out of all of those activities. So attending a Dignity Lab is the best way to receive that information, but you can also visit thrivancegroup.com or subscribe to the newsletter so that you're notified first when these reports are available. Thank you, and I will hand it over to my colleagues to walk us through a question and answer period.
All right, any questions from board members? First, before I do that, I want to thank the Thrivance Group for their report and their summary of activity to date. And so now I'll lean over to my colleagues if they have any questions for Dr. Thomas. And please be sure to unmute yourself. And state your name.
Thank you, Eric. And thanks, Dr. Thomas and the Thrivance Group. This was amazing. My name is Gracia Dennis, and just quick question regarding the Dignity Labs that are coming up in October, November, and December. Would it be helpful for folks to join all 3, or should we target I'm just more so thinking for us as we're doing outreach, okay, all 3. So make sure folks attend each. Okay, cool. Yeah, just wanted to clarify as we target outreach, if there's one over the other would be better. So thank you.
People don't have to attend all 3, but it's our way of on-ramping folks into the heavier conversations about policy. So in the first one, it'll be very high level. Actually, it'll be very similar to the presentation that we just gave. We just have to do it a second time. And then folks will get on the spot invitation to become a part of the Policy Lab or Dignity Lab working group. And then through that invitation, we'll create ongoing communication with participating residents. And then we'll work with them virtually through email, ongoing communication to get us to the second meeting where we'll come together and share our preliminary ideas. So it's not like come to the meeting and that's the only time you'll hear from us. It's just that the meetings are where we convene to finalize any decisions that are being made. And so not only do we encourage, you know, the broader sense of Fresno community, but also members of this anti-displacement task force, because we want to make sure you're a part of the vetting process too.
Are there any other questions from the committee members before we go out to the public?
Yeah, this is Preston. Dr. Thomas, I totally agree with Gracia. It was a great presentation, a great overview. I'm overwhelmed by all of the steps and things you're taking on, and so I'm glad it's you and your team. It's really fantastic. My quick question is are you connecting with like cultural arts organizations? I'm thinking about the oral histories. Like where does it go and kind of grow and keep residing within Fresno into the future? I'd love to know, because I think this is great. I'd love for us to think about how doing oral histories within the housing community. And so I just want to figure out how's this going to last.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we hope it lasts through us. We're looking for opportunities to maintain a relationship in the project area to continue to facilitate the work. But secondarily, we do have Ndidi, who is leading our coalition building effort. She has created a coalition building strategy, which just needs a little bit of graphic design before we share it with folks. But we have a comprehensive list of both youth organizations, arts organizations, and housing advocacy groups across the city of Fresno, who will actually be going to first to start to collect oral histories from. And then also we're working with one of our partners on the Transform Fresno project, EOC, to support us in supplementing some of the resources that we lost as a result of COVID-19 for production, for film production and audio production. So we're still building those relationships. If you have specific recommendations, feel free to email us at info@thrivinsproject.com.
Thank you.
Preston, thank you for that question, Preston. Are there questions from other board members before we go out to the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll go out for public comment. Courtney and Sophia, are you ready?
Yes. So the
All right, our first.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, go ahead. You said the first public comment.
Yeah, so the first person I'm going to unmute is Catherine Crozier. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you. This is her daughter, Dr. Karen Crozier, and I am calling. My question has to do with how many participants will be able to participate in the Dignity Lab. Is there a cutoff number, and what is the selection process involved in that? And as well as going back to the transformative justice groups, are those still in play as far as opportunity to engage in them? Even though we missed them, we were not aware of them. My mother and I were not aware of them when they occurred previously. So those are the three questions that we have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can answer those questions. So your first question was regarding opportunities to participate in the oral history. And so, the first question was regarding opportunities to participate in the planning labs, the policy labs. And we don't have a maximum number of participants for that. What we're looking to do is cast a very wide net and to create many different opportunities for people to participate. And I also want to emphasize that participating in the lab is not the only way to contribute to the policy development process, because we also have the info hubs where you can go and leave your input or engage with someone about the project in your community. So we don't have a limited number. We're actually not vetting people to participate in the policy lab. It's whoever wants to participate will help build capacity for your participation. And then regarding the transformative justice sessions, similarly, those opportunities don't have a cutoff date beyond our contractual cutoff date. And so the way to get involved in either or both of those activities right now is to email info@thrivanceproject.com. And then we're hoping by, we actually have our first community lab, which is, Didi, help me with the date, I think happening on October 12th. Yeah, where we'll share more information about it long-term, what this partnership will look like between us and community. So none of the opportunities have an expiration date.
Thank you for that, Dr. Thomas. Courtney, next question, next public comment.
Actually, I don't see any hands right now. So if anybody does have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand.
Are there any comments in the chat?
The chat isn't open to the public, so I know there was none in the chat.
Okay.
Oh. Oh, I have one person, Janos Paulus. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Janos?
Sorry about that. I'm visually impaired. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for having me. And I would like to get involved. I'm a homeless veterans advocate in the whole Central Valley on my own as a volunteer. And those numbers are not shocking at all, Dr. Thomas. Thank you. 45.2% unhoused. And it's really sad. And I would like to get involved because I want to get this place fixed before I leave this earth. Thank you.
Hi, Giannis. I see all of your emails when you're sending us helpful leads to do work in the community. So I just want to flag for you that I actually do follow up on all of the emails that you send. So thank you. You could use that same email address to reach out to participate in the activities. And then of course, I believe you're also on our subscription list. So when we're ready to go, which is any day now, you'll get notification first. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And please, for the public's knowledge, if you have an interest of joining their listserv, please go to their website, thrivancegroup.com. And if you have an expressed interest in anything else, please email info@thrivancegroup or thrivance.com. Courtney, if there are any other questions from the public, we'll bring it back and go to the next agenda item.
Next comment is from Bernice's Galaxy phone. You can go ahead and unmute yourself now.
Hi, my name is Bernice Vega. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
yep, we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I'd like to say hello, and I'm actually the manager for United Health Centers. We just opened a health center here in the Tuolumne, on Tuolumne Street, and we're looking for ways to get involved to help bridge our community together, as well as hopefully I did take interest into the oral history project interest form and have recently subscribed, and we look forward to hopefully building partnerships so that we can help end our displacement here within the Fresno downtown area, but also looking forward to building the community partnerships and community growing. So I look forward to continuing to stay involved in this group and to continue to help participate in the thrive of our community. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for having this, for sending me the brochure to the clinic, and I logged on at 6, and I do forgive, please forgive me for I couldn't, during roll call, I couldn't answer. I'm sorry about that, but I do want to say thank you very much for the work that you guys are doing, and we continue to look forward to helping building those partnerships throughout this community.
Thank you, Bernice. And feel free to reach out to us just as partners in the community. Of course, reach out to us if you want to be part of oral history or the info hub, which sounds like a great opportunity for you. But also, as I mentioned before, we're looking to maintain a long-term relationship with the various Fresno communities. So we would love to sit and talk with you more about how to partner and support you.
All right, next member of the public is Lisa Harry. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, on the flyer, it was saying something about the anti-displacement, but she did mention something that I wanted some more information about the push out.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted you to explain, go more in depth into that, if you could.
Regarding the state of displacement in Fresno?
Yeah, and the push out.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning that when we did our on the ground analysis, we noticed a substantial number of signs of push out, like a lot of moving vans and furniture dumping. But this is the type of conversation that we want to have at the policy lab that Ndidi talked about. So we want to go in, we want to have the in-depth conversation with you, share the data with you, and be thought partners with you on how we resolve the problem. And the correct or the venue that we have access to in order to do that is through the Dignity Labs, the first one being on October 12th.
Oh, okay then. Okay, so we have to go to that one and then you'll talk to us more about it.
Yes, I will request the attendee list or ask for the City of Fresno support to notify this attendee list with the flyer for that first lab.
Okay then. Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank
you. Thank you, Ms. Henry. Next public comment, Courtney.
Kaya Heron, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Kaya Heron, go ahead.
Kaya, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much to all of the members of the Anti-Displacement Task Force and to the Thrive-Ins group for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for the language and the intentionality behind your analysis and for presenting it in a way where we can all understand. I'm really excited about the analysis you did on the safety net and the way that we can take part in that work. Specifically on the labor profile at the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, that's some of the work that we're doing, and we look forward to partnering with you and advancing that work and hopefully being one of the info hubs as well and participating in the Dignity Labs. One thing that I also wanted to highlight that I thought was really important as well is the reclamation aspect and displacement and that right to return. We know that so many people have been pushed out. And so being intentional about preserving community means we allow people to come back and we protect that and make that possible. So thank you for all the work you're doing. I look forward to continuing that conversation and I will be reaching out.
Thank you. We look forward to it. I believe someone from Metro Black Chamber of Commerce has been, I think we have something that we're trying to set up, but feel free to also reach out to us just to make sure we can close that loop. We really do want to work with you.
Thank you.
All right, Courtney, next public comment.
Okay, Emily Brandt, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hi.
Emily, are you there? Uh-oh, I think we lost her. Let's try it again. Emily?
Hello?
Emily, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Sorry. My question is, when people are pushed out of the community, I assume they're pushed out because we're talking about the city buying their property, or in some way they're no longer able to live on their property. So you mentioned the right to return. My question is, can they afford to return? How are these things enabled? Thank you.
Yeah. So I probably need support from someone on city staff to answer this question, but I will say, Emily, in terms of our analysis, we are currently in the process of mapping all of the existing as well as previous development projects that have happened within the project footprint to get a better feel for the extent to which displacement is linked. We know it is, but to what extent displacement is linked to development in and of itself. We also know that there are some new projects or projects that are scoped in the near term that are creating a fear of imminent easements and removal of folks from their property. We haven't found any indicators that is actually happening, although from the standpoint of someone who's been displaced before, it certainly is something that we are looking into as allies and as partners in the community. So I do think that there are a number of complexities that lend themselves to making Fresno less affordable, even especially now, but even before COVID-19. And so, yes, along with the recommendations that we'll make regarding folks being able to return, we'll make recommendations about folks being able to have some stability in their existing place, in the place that they're currently in. And that stability includes affordability. I don't know if anyone from the city wants to speak to easements that are planned. I'm not aware of those.
Hi, this is the chair, Eric Payne. Ms. Brandt, we want to thank you for your comment. And just to speak to it a little bit, your question was, in the event that the city is displacing folks currently because of eminent domain, and please let me reassure you and the public that the city has not displaced folks for eminent domain. And we do hope that you will participate, and we hope to hear further from you around policy recommendations and solutions through our Dignity listening sessions with the Thrivance group. And we do appreciate your commitment to this process going forward. So now I will yield back to Courtney for the next public comment.
We do have a question by Michael Lynn. How will you contact some of the least known historians in Southwest Fresno?
Hi, Michaeline. So we're going to do that in a number of ways. Again, we're spreading our reach in terms of our opportunity to engage the Oral History Project. We're spreading that throughout the entire city of Fresno. And basically, our intention is to activate all of the essential businesses that have permission to remain open. So that is one way. And then another way, we're working to make sure that we include as many people as possible, including people who haven't traditionally been included in these processes. And one way we're doing that is through our resident ambassador program, which we hope will cover the blocks that aren't adjacent to transit. And then also, we're not, again, applying an expiration date or a rigid timeline to the process itself. Although we have an unveiling planned in January, we hope that the locations of those assets will remain open to receiving more and new and ongoing assets as we collect more stories. So one of the ways we prevent this project from leaving people out is by not closing the door on folks and creating as many opportunities for folks to meet folks where they are and for folks to meet us where we are.
Thank you. Courtney, next public comment.
I don't see any more public comments or questions.
All right. So
hold on. one just popped up. Okay, Lisa Flores, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Just some real quick comments. At what point does Fresno get around to doing rent control in an area so displacement doesn't occur as fast, or gentrification doesn't happen as fast? And also too, with new constructions, when you're going through the planning process and there is displacements of residents, can in the planning process, those displaced residents have the first right to housing at the rates that they're currently paying for rent? And is there possibility to have a certain percentage of new housing be rent controlled so you can keep some of the residents in the same community versus displacing them? It's more or less a policy.
Hi, Ms. Flores. I think there's a specific question there around the availability of rent control in Fresno. So I'm going to yield to someone at the city to talk in a more informed way about a plan or intention to do that. And then I also will invite you to the policy lab to incorporate those recommendations and to share with us what your experience has been with displacement on October 12th.
And I will yield to Sophia from the city.
Hi, and hello, Lisa. What I would say right now about rent control is that it isn't a policy of the city at this moment within the city's housing element, which is one of its main umbrella housing policies right now. But certainly right now with COVID and everything else, there are many conversations happening about housing policy. And so I would look forward to what ideas emerge in the Dignity Labs and in other work that you're doing.
And one, let me affirm and thank Lisa for her question, because I've worked with her for quite some time and her heart is in the right place. And so I just want to give an affirmation that those types of questions are definitely at the forefront of our minds as leadership on this task force and as many of the members on this task force. And I think that's something that we'll be taking a deep look at as policy recommendations emerge from the final report from the Thrivance group. So Lisa, thank you for your question. And I'll yield back to Courtney for the next public comment.
Okay, Michael Lynn, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I'm sorry, I don't have another question except to say thank you. I'm sorry I tuned in late. I had trouble connecting, but I'm glad to, excuse me, I'm glad to be able to, excuse me, sit in on this meeting. Those coughs are not COVID, it's the bad weather.
All right, thank you, Michael Lynn, and we look forward to tapping into your wisdom as a community historian. So thank you for joining us today.
Eric, take me to lunch.
Yes, I'll yield back to Courtney for the next public comment if there are any others.
I don't see any other public comments at this time.
All right, so I'll yield back to, we'll close the public comment and we'll go to our next agenda item, Sophia.
Okay, let's see. I think just to make sure everybody's following along, I'd like to share my screen again. So I will do that. Can everybody see the screen? Yes, okay, great. Again, a thank you to Thrivance for that amazing presentation, and then the follow-up questions were great too. We are now on item 6, which is any action items, next steps, and task force meeting schedule. So this anti-displacement task force has been meeting most recently just quarterly, so once every 3 months. But Eric and I wanted to bring that issue to the task force to consider, now that you're more informed about what the Thrive-Ins group is doing with the community and all of the activities. Staff really wanted some input from you about the frequency of your meetings, if you would like them to be monthly, if you would like them to be every other month, or if there's some other way that the task force perhaps wants to participate in the activities happening in the community. That was the intent of that item.
Thank you, Sophia. And so now I'll open the discussion to the task force members around our meeting schedule. I think it's by recommendation that we go to a monthly meeting schedule of meeting once a month and until to push our discussions along and keep things on task as we move through the process. I'd love to hear from any other members around a monthly, once a month meeting schedule.
Hey, Eric, this is Gracia. So I'm wondering, how is it that we can, like, I feel like what the Thrive-Ins group is doing is awesome. And so I wonder if, you know, so we don't replicate and duplicate what they're doing and create an extra meeting for folks to have to join. Like, how is it that we can kind of leverage those spaces that they're creating and, you know, have this task force actually join those, because I think there's gonna be a wealth of knowledge that we're gonna hear from community partners in those spaces that this task force should really listen to and ground ourselves to move forward with our mission, with what we hope to accomplish. And so I kind of think a monthly meeting would just be an additional burden for folks right now. And so I, you know, maybe doing it every other month or something like that. But I do really want to leverage those spaces that the Thrive-Ins group is creating.
I'd like to echo what Gracia's saying. I'd really love to be more plugged in. What Thrive-Ins is doing looks fantastic. And I'd love to, you know, be up to date on how that's going and what they're learning from the community. So what Gracia said is, I think, right on with what I'm thinking too, that it'd be great if we could just somehow merge those spaces.
We'd be happy to support that format. We're meeting monthly anyway. Our workshops are monthly. And so I think there's a way to accomplish what both sides of this, if you're open to it.
You know,
I'd like to hear from other board members around a monthly meeting schedule or a alternative of merging the two together somehow, some way. Other thoughts from board members? All right. Since I'm not hearing anything, or I want to give folks a chance to chime in if their phones were muted or their computers were muted, to make sure that they unmute themselves when they speak. All right, I'll give it back to staff. It seems to, it appears that the conversation is centered around a hybrid of our meeting schedules aligning with Thrive-Ins and their public engagement process. Also allowing us an opportunity, maybe it's a special meeting with the Thrive-Ins group, and then our regularly scheduled board meeting to also coincide. Thoughts from staff?
Well, I'm here to serve the task force and this whole effort. Staff is here to do that. I did have an idea, and I wonder what you and the task force and Thrivance think about this. I think Thrivance mentioned they're having 3 dignity labs. It's October 12th, November 9th, and December 7th, or something like that. Would it make sense for the task force to participate in those dignity labs? And second question is then, how do they participate as individuals? Do they have any role? Or I'd love to hear just thoughts on that.
Dr. Thomas?
So I'm thinking having like participation that is from a power analysis, like completely aligned with the same level of participation that the general public would have. But I think how we like scaffold that and get to some preliminary decision making through the Anti-Displacement Task Force is, what would it look like for us to generate a report after each lab with key decision-making opportunities listed in it, so that you all can have sort of a more truncated version of a meeting, like immediately after, or a week later, to make any decisions that need to be made regarding what is heard in the lab itself. My interest is to have you be a part of the policy making process with community, because I think that that's that in and of itself is like an important shift in terms of power dynamics, but to also not take a long time to respond to the feedback that we get from those spaces. So whatever format works for like being responsive to what community is saying is the one that I'm recommending.
All right, any thoughts from other board members in relation to that process? I know I heard from Amber and Gracia. Did you have any other thoughts after hearing the recommendation from staff and Dr. Thomas and the Thrivance group? Make sure your phones are on mute.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. This is Sal Gonzalez. A couple of things I'd like to impute. One is, Dr. Thomas, your presentation was in fact outstanding. I will let you know that the Arte America, a little bit involved with them, and they just they finished up about a year ago, a pretty significant, about a year and a half, 2 years worth of work on a history project of which they chronicled the Latino community experience in the Central Valley, much of it in Fresno County, and a lot of it, the preponderance within the city of Fresno. And I think you'll find, reaching out to them, you'll find a significant amount of information, much of it recorded, and so I think that might help to conjugate
Sal, your audio is coming out really bad. I don't know if you're moving away from the microphone, but it sounds like you're kind of turning your head away from the microphone and we're losing your audio.
Thank you. How about now?
That sounds better.
Okay, thank you. So the one is the Art America work. A lot of it has been done. You might take advantage of that too. Is in terms of the timing, I'm fine. I think Gracia's recommendation is fine. I'm fine with every other month. If that's the case, in terms of the participation in the meetings, the dignity meetings, my only caveat is that it would be great less from us and the more from the members of the community who are willing to take their and make statements and try to articulate what they're feeling and seeing and what they would like. And so my only thought there is, sometimes it gets set up where some of us are on a task force and some of us are not, and I prefer to hear from those of us that are not on the task force as opposed to those of us who are on the task force, so that the members who are taking time to go to the meetings really do have a forum to articulate their positions and what they're seeing and feeling. So, Mr. Chairman, those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Sal. We appreciate that. So it seems to be, unless there are other members of the task force who have differentiating thoughts, that we move forward with a hybrid model to engage with the Thrivance Group and Dr. Thomas, and hearing from the public participatory process that they've outlined, and coordinating with staff around the summary of the report, and moving forward with actionable outcomes related to those focus groups, that as that information comes back to this body. If I'm hearing everyone correctly, can we please, and it seems like staff is looking, staff, are you looking for a formal motion or just a consensus with direction?
Consensus with direction is fine. Just want to know how often you want to meet and how you think this best fits with the work that Thrivance is doing.
All right, it seems to you have consensus and you have direction. Did you want to offer any clarity or summarize what you heard today from the board as you move forward?
Yes, I would like to. I think what I gather from the conversation is that task force members are free to participate in the Dignity Labs as individuals and interested members of the public. And if the task force would like to deliberate as a task force, it could meet a week or two after each of those 3 meetings in October, November, and December to, fully digest and deliberate on the recommendations that come out of those. That's what I'm hearing, and that's probably what I would do unless I'm given further direction.
Excellent. I think that's a good summary of our discussion this evening related to this item. Not hearing anything else from other commissioners, I guess we'll close this item and we'll move on to the next item. Staff?
Yes, this is just unscheduled oral communications. It's an item that we have on our agendas for any items that are not on the agenda.
And is this to go out to the public, or is this a
yes, this is for members of the public, should they wish to comment on something that was not on the agenda.
Excellent. So Courtney, we'll throw the ball back to you. Members of the public, please, if you have questions or if you have comments, please signify by raising your hand, and we will get to you shortly. So Courtney?
At this time, I don't see any hands raised. Oh, one hand. Dallas Blanchard, you may go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of, question in the statement. First of all, how do I get notifications of when the meetings are coming up? I attended the city council meeting when they first formed the task force, but then never heard anything until this meeting. And then secondly, and I actually said this during the city council vote, I find the definition of displacement that the task force is working on to be very narrow. To say that displacement is only related to rent increases is really missing a lot of displacement. I lived in Chinatown for 14 years before speculators came in and told us to get out because they wanted to speculate on the real estate in the neighborhood. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney, next comment?
There are no other hands raised.
Can I add to that, Courtney?
Go ahead, Morgan.
Yeah. So this is a tough one. Even Destiny, I'm sorry to. Well, I hope I can talk to you offline about some of Yeah, but you know, like real life stuff, what has happened in Fresno recently is like the Fulton Mall. The Fulton Mall, let's just say, in my opinion, is in a gentrification process as we speak, and it displaced a lot of people during the construction of the vehicular traffic on the Fulton Mall. So we definitely see some gentrification there. What would have happened if some of these policies were in place before and prepared ourselves for the gentrification of Fulton Mall? Chinatown has gone through eminent domain. We lost all buildings east of G Street, so that forced our community to become smaller without any steps to make it whole again. And then what I see about to happen in Southwest Fresno, with the State Center going in, and it's going to create new commercial, so it's not really going to, but it's going to impact residential for the first time. At the Chinatown and the Fulton Mall stuff didn't really impact residential as much as it did business. But the residents of Southwest, right now they're being asked to sell their home because prices are going up, which is not a bad thing, but it's the people who don't own their houses. It's a terrible thing. So what would have happened to Fulton Mall in Chinatown is something you don't have to answer this right now. So hopefully I can talk to you offline so I can talk to the community on like, okay, we just went through this, and this would have happened if we would have had this Thrivance group here to protect downtown and Chinatown, and what's about to happen with Southwest Fresno. So I'll leave it at that, but I don't feel, as a board member, some of those questions, I'd like to just have some direction to how to answer those questions.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank you for your comments, because I think as we move through, this is Eric Payne, as we move through this process and gather information from the Thrivance group, I think that as we begin to formulate what these policy conversations and what our recommendations as a task force will be, I certainly think that needs to be at the forefront of these of this process and in these conversations. So as we move through the community engagement process between now and December, and when we circle back, I definitely want to parking lot these comments and have further dialogue, because I think it's important. So thank you. Any other comments from board members? And please be sure to unmute yourself. If not, Courtney, are there other public comments and unscheduled oral communication?
Yes, I have one more person on here, Rose Howell. You should be able to unmute yourself. Oh. I'm not sure why she's not being.
Actually, Courtney, with that one, they have an old version of Zoom. The only way they're going to be able to talk is if you temporarily promote them to panelist.
Okay. Okay, Rose, are you able to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. And so I just wanted a real brief statement for some clarity. And that would be on, first of all, I do want to thank the Thrivance group. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm very motivated to
be on board as a member of the community. I did need clarity on the map, which was designating a Chinatown area. This is piggybacking the last statement of the neighbor that we just heard from. And that map seemed to have a boundary when it came to the target area for the task force or for the principles that would be guiding the avoidance steps, the displacement avoidance. And I just wanted clarity that the displacement avoidance means and is applicable to the Southwest Fresno community in general. And so those direction that the task force and the steering, the board would be moving in is to include a greater portion of our Southwest community. And so I really need clarification on that map that was included, which kind of stopped at a southern border of about B Street. And so my interest is in our greater West Fresno community. Thank you.
Do I have permission to respond?
I think we're gonna yield this one to staff because I hear Ms. Hollowell's concern and I want to recognize some of the importance between the TCC planning process and the scope and the boundary lines, but also the charge from this body, which is Greater Fresno, which is inclusive of all parts of our community in the city of Fresno within our sphere of influence. So, Sophia?
Yes, thank you, Eric. I don't think I could have said it better myself. I mean, a portion of the task force's charge is to support the development of the displacement avoidance plan, which relates to the Transform Fresno boundary that essentially includes Southwest Fresno and downtown. However, the charge of the task force goes beyond that. The task force does have, can develop and recommend anti-displacement policy for any areas of the city, as long as the objectives in the city's housing element are met first. So, and we can talk more about those at another time, but it's basically focusing on, you know, identifying the data and the causes of displacement and how to prevent displacement in the Southwest and downtown project area first. It's a first area of focus, I would say.
All right, thank you, Sophia, for that. And Ms. Howe, I certainly want to thank you for your question and for your concern, and to reaffirm that we hear you, and we will look to integrate this conversation in one of the Thrivance planning sessions, and we do hope that you will participate. And thank you for your commitment. What I thought I heard was your willingness to be an ambassador through this process in partnership with the Thrivance Group and Dr. Thomas. So thank you. Next, I will go to the next public comment. Courtney, if there are any others.
There are no others at this moment.
Courtney, you have some Q&A.
Okay. Okay, this is from Hazel. How does the displacement project help with those that is on the government program that regulate their rent? Which experience displacement to property owners who require the use of their own property? then are timed by agencies such as the housing authorities to find placement.
I think I'll have Sophia, if you can respond to this question. I think it's a loaded question. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all parts of this question. I wish the questionnaire or the person who's asking this question was on the line so we can get a little more clarity from them. But Sophia, I'll let you take the first response at the question.
Sure. I think the person was asking about what happens in the case where a person has a housing choice voucher and they are asked to leave. I'm not sure, but perhaps one of our task force members, Preston Prince, could, if he thinks he understands the question better than I do and has a response, the door is open for that. Otherwise, I think we want to be hearing more about what is happening out there in the community, including in that kind of a situation. And we'd really like to invite you to provide input to the process, if possible.
All right, is Preston still on the call? Oh, seems like we may have lost him. So, and we will take note of some of these questions because some of them require further discovery to give resolution to some of the public's concerns. And so we will definitely do our due diligence and circle back. So Courtney, if there's the next public comment.
Yes, I have one more question from Venice Curry. Thank you for the presentation. Since this body shares recommendations, how does this affect current development?
Thank you, Dr. Curry, for that question. I think as we move through this process and we develop these policy recommendations, we will certainly be taking a deep look at current development code as it relates to the housing element of the general plan. And I'll also offer staff to also share their comments around Dr. Curry's question. You have to unmute yourself, Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, and nice to hear from you, Dr. Curry. I don't know the answer to the question, how does the Thrivance Group's work affect current development? I think that is something that will be discovered when we find out what the policy recommendations are. It's about as good of an answer as I can provide at the moment.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Curry, for that question. Courtney, next public comment.
There are no questions and nobody's hands are raised, and we don't have any questions from our interpreters either. So I think we're good.
All right, we will close this portion of our agenda for public comment, and we will. I will give closing remarks to any of my colleagues on the dais at this time. So if any of the other board members have closing remarks, please feel free to share at this time. And please be sure to unmute yourself. All right. I just wanted to, I guess I'll close this out. I certainly want to reinforce and thank my colleagues on this board for their vote of confidence and my leadership as chair. I look forward to working with Grecia and city staff to bring the community's concerns to the forefront of this dialogue as we move into our policy recommendations. I definitely would like to thank the Thrivance Group and Dr. Thomas and her staff and Dee Dee and the others for their work in their presentation today. And finally, also welcome one of our newest members to the board, Amber with Faith in the Valley. We certainly appreciate your voice in this conversation, and we look forward to hearing more from you. And finally to staff for coordinating, Gavin and Courtney and Sophia for getting us here today and getting us through this new normal for many of us and our families, and this Zoom call. And most importantly, I want to thank the public for sticking with us for so long. We blocked out 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. time, and we are approaching the 8 o'clock hour. And I know many of you are itching to get back to your families and get dinner ready. So again, I want to thank everybody for their time, and we look forward to your participation in our next meeting. City staff? Sophia, you want to close this out?
I couldn't have said it better myself. If no one else has any further comments on the task force before we close, I'm ready to close it out.
All right, hearing none, thank you for your time, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.